Food is the socially acceptable drug in our society. That's what a viewer said to me after the session a couple weeks ago. Do you think that's true? I think it's pretty much true. I know it's been true for me, especially at certain points in my life during my medical training and stressful seasons, right? We can turn to it and it helps in the short term, doesn't it? Comfort food, pretty much always feel better, at least in the short term. But it doesn't always take us in the direction that we want to go in the long term, and that's what I really want to dive into today. Think about the times when it comes up, right? Boredom, that's a big one when I talk to you, right? How do we cope with boredom, right? A lot of times food can get us through that sort of mental space, and so many others. Whether it's just stress or anxiety, depression, trauma, we cope with food, and it creates a cycle where we become dependent on it. Let's move toward it in a really thoughtful way today, hopefully a really powerful way also. Today I'm going to be talking about meditation. There's lots of ways to break a cycle with food, but meditation I'm going to focus on today. I think it's a very powerful practice. Many synergies, many similarities of quite a relationship in my experience with a fasting practice and a meditation practice. These are both skills that can be developed that can bring great benefit to the body. Real nice to have you here. I'm Dr. Z, if we haven't met. So good to have you here. This is Fasting Space, an opportunity to chat about fasting and health while doing a bit of fasting together. So grab a coffee or tea or your beverage of choice. I'm grabbing an herbal tea today, so if you've been following along with the channel, I certainly love some good coffee. Sometimes I go tea, though, and today for meditation, a little meditation focus session, I said I'm going to go with tea, caffeine-free. My experience has been, okay, sometimes, caffeine can be so helpful. Caffeine is a tool, right? Caffeine can be an appetite suppressant, can help you practice fasting, absolutely. My experience is that caffeine can also amp you up a bit. Can make me at least a little bit anxious, especially, if you're like me and drink a whole pot. That's why I went half calf. If I'm trying to practice a meditation, which we'll dive into it, I have some little kind of slides. It's a practice to bring peace and contentment to the mind, right? This is where we're going to try to dive into. We're trying to get into this mental, emotional state that is feeding around into our physical condition and state, right? If we're trying to lose weight, we're trying to burn blood sugar. See, we have a physical self, right? And we have a mental, emotional self. And then we can kind of separate them. We can talk about them as separate things. But really, it's all the same, right? In reality, we don't have two selves. We don't just have a body and a mind. We are a mind-body, right? It's all the same. And so our mental and emotional state feeds through into our physical health, and our physical health and the state in our body shapes the context that creates our emotional and mental well-being. So it's all the same. And even to say that they interact is starting to miss the point, like they're the same, all right? But for our purposes, it can be helpful to look at them somewhat separately. But that's where we're going to dive in. Pat is here. Good morning. So nice to have you here. I hope you're doing well. I also have been really looking forward to this session. The mindset that I want to bring in this session, from my own personal self, I am not a meditation guru. I am not a master at this. I'm a student, and so this is like a student's perspective. But I do, the thing that is so good about it with meditation, you don't have to become some Zen master to derive significant benefit from it in your life. I've been personally, seriously moving toward meditation as a personal practice this is like year 3. So here in Madison, it's an interesting story. Have you seen some of the largest medical studies of meditation were done here in Madison at the University of Wisconsin? They brought the Dalai Lama in, and if you search like Madison, University of Wisconsin, Dalai Lama, you'll find this little documentary. And they brought all of his, he had this entourage of like 20, I don't know what they are, what the right word is, monks or whatever. People super into meditation, and they took him into the research center, and they did functional MRI scans and brain scans, right, on all these people as they're meditating. And I didn't know that this was happening. This was back when I was in med school. My wife and I were just out to eat at a local Chinese restaurant, I think. And then the Dalai Lama comes in with his whole entourage of people. I didn't know they were doing the meditation study here, but there's fascinating science on what is happening in the brain. And honestly, it wasn't for like 10 years till I actually saw the documentary. I was like, oh, I was there, kind of. So I moved toward it a little bit, and as I'm personally practicing this, I try to practice what I kind of preach, right? I try to help people with fasting. I'm always looking for ways to help people in this process losing weight, and to me, diving in on the emotional connection with all this is like the root of the process. It's like one thing to know about a fasting practice or say, I understand this conceptually. Like, okay, there's energy here and we want to open up space. But knowing about it and doing it are two completely different things. And so to dive in this direction, I've also, okay, student, I'm practicing it, learning it, but I'm also like sharing that exploration with people. I like to share with you the process that I've been using, both personally and that I lead people toward. And it's not one thing. It's kind of a palette of practices to explore. The thing I was thinking about, have you ever had this thought, what if you could go back in time and tell yourself, give yourself some advice, your younger self? I don't really know what it would be, but as I was thinking about this topic, the thought came to myself, I think I might tell myself, like, when I'm like 16 or something, like, start learning about a meditation, start building a practice. I started when I was like 39. And what is the potential of a meditation practice? What is the goal? Okay, to find a mental space of peace and contentment. That's my goal. Personally, that's what I want to try to help people do. It's not an easy thing to do in this society, right? This is a distraction society in so many ways. And a meditation practice is the opposite of that. I consider it like an antidote. How do we disconnect ourselves a bit from the stress and the pressure that we all experience in so many ways? Just culturally, politically, financially, socially, to find a place where we're centered in ourselves so that we have a place of mental strength and that we can use that as a tool. That's the goal to me. And it's possible. A practice to develop that, or it would be very valuable, right? If you could do that. I say it's a skill that you can develop, but it just like fasting, right? It's something that you have to practice and develop over time. You don't start at the masterful level. You start at the student level and you move toward it. So I think I'd tell this to myself. Now, if anybody came up to me when I was 16 and said, "Oh, you should like start meditating," I'd be like, "Oh yeah." Right. But you know, let me share some pictures with you. I created this image over the week. It was my little graphic design project. Christy is here. Good morning. I don't know. I'm setting up these different windows. I don't know if can I bring in your comment over to this beautiful window? No. I'll fix that for next time. So I made this image this weekend. Give me any feedback on this little cycle. Does this resonate with you? We experience stress. We have food cravings, right? Because we've experienced it, right? We know we eat a comfort food, we're going to feel better and it's going to help us. And that's this first part of the cycle, right? We're stressed, we're experiencing something difficult. We have these emotions and experiences which we think of as, what's the right word? Like our own thoughts, right? But in many ways, they're hormonal, and we're experiencing the intensity of like hormonal effects and chemicals in our body that make us feel certain ways. Very hard to tease that out. That's the connection, right? The mental and emotional with actually the physical in the body. Then we eat something, and you may look at this happy person, and they're feeling better. But so many of the things we eat that give us the most instant gratification aren't the types of things that lead to health. They don't even make us feel better in the long run, 2 hours later. So our insulin is spiking up and then it's crashing and we can have headaches and it drives cycles of hunger. And I know I've been in this. I've had, I don't know if I told the stories on the channel before, but we have a break room at my old clinic and people fill them up with donuts and pastries. And it's like, I just have to, you stay away. Otherwise, you get in this cycle. And then like I ate like a whole giant donut cake thing one day. I just couldn't, he's like, I couldn't stop. And I was like, oh, God. And then it feels so terrible. It's like, have you ever had that? Like, I can't believe I did that. Like, but in the moment, so intense. And that sort of state feeds back around into our stress. And this is what starts to create the cycle. So we want to break out of that. And this is the place to do it. This is the critical space, right? I'm not saying eating is bad. Eating is not bad, but stress eating and like pathological eating that is an emotional crutch with food that we don't really want to be eating, that is the part that we have to break off. And if I had, more time, I'd like to draw another thing with a loop that is coming out of here. Can we use a mental process to bring us out of this cycle into a place of balance with it, where a meditation practice cannot eliminate a stress, right? But it can help us to cope with it. There we go. Stress is probably like meditation in that the more you practice it, the better you get. The stress master. Yeah, I think that is the case. We, every decision that we make, right, it sets a precedent. And the more we cycle through a practice, the more we ingrain that as the way that we operate, right? And the more history we build up with it, the harder it can be to break out of that. So we do practice it. I think that's a really thoughtful way to think about it. We practice the stress, or the stress is there, and we practice unhealthy ways of dealing with it, right? And so like, if it maybe a stress can't be ultimately escaped, we have to earn money, we have to interact with certain people, we have to we live here in this society, right? The stress exists. How we choose to respond to it can change, though. And so moving toward it in a very thoughtful way. The graphic is spot on for me, with the exception of the guilt. I don't have time for the guilt, right? Looking forward to the exit loop. Yeah. Let's dive into it. All right, so here's a series of thoughts. As I was thinking about meditation, the first thing that came to my mind was this quote from Marcus Aurelius. So I read a couple years ago, Meditations, Marcus Aurelius's most famous book. Meditations is, this guy was like emperor of Rome and was a philosopher, and he wrote Meditations just as a journal to himself. So this is like his reflection for himself. I will paraphrase in more gender-inclusive language, okay? People seek seclusion in the wilderness, by the sea or in the mountains. A dream you, he's speaking to himself, have cherished only too fondly yourself. But such fancies are wholly unworthy of a philosopher, since at any moment you choose, you can retire within yourself. Nowhere can anyone find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in their own soul. Above all, those who possess resources in themselves, which you need to only contemplate to secure an immediate ease of mind, the ease that is but another word for a well-ordered spirit. Avail yourself then often of this retirement, and so continually renew yourself. I highlighted this in Meditations when I was reading. I was like, that really hit me. And I think when I was reading it a couple years ago, I think the reason I highlighted it is I didn't really believe it. And I was like, is this true? Like, because people say, oh, this book, Meditation is so profound. And I was like, I'm reading it and I'm like, is this really true? At the moment when I was reading it, I was like, you know what? I'd take a vacation home by the ocean or the lake. I think I probably would be better off. I would be more relaxed. But that's because I had no skill or experience in doing what it says. It's not something you can just do, in my experience. It's not like the first time you sit, there's no magic. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not like you can just sit down with no experience of any kind, say, I'm going to meditate today, and I'm going to have such a blissful experience that I'd actually be rather here sitting in my basement than actually in some beautiful chateau in the mountains. Like, it just doesn't seem to work that way. Maybe for you it will. I don't want to give you a negative self-fulfilling prophecy, go for it. But my experience is that actually to sit down and try to clear your mind and embrace an open space, you realize, this is what I realized, there isn't peace or contentment in my mind. That can be a difficult reality to face. And that's, I think, one of the big barriers of why people don't do it. To actually sit with yourself can be very difficult, because then you're confronted with, okay, the stress is there. Meditation is not, in my experience, about running away from stress. It's about accepting it in a healthy way, coping with it in a healthy way. It's actually the real way to actually do it. So much of what we do instead of meditate is distract, right? We distract ourselves and we forget about it and we push it out, and that's how it builds. We don't effectively cope and process it in a way that helps us to rid ourselves of it. Okay, so this was one thought from Marcus Aurelius. Oh, I keep hitting the wrong button. Pat says, I've tried meditation and found it stressful and quickly gave up. Thank you so much for sharing this perspective. I can totally relate to that. I think I told you this is like year 3 of moving toward meditation for me. But that's maybe not fair because like the first, year, I was definitely like this. And I had a lot of frustration or even resentment about it because like you read, things like I just read to you. You watch, people who are like into it online and many times it's portrayed as this thing that is very easy or simple. Oh, you just meditate and it's just like this thing and then like your whole life is better. And this is a very real thing that many people experience, and I experience it. Like, okay, like I sit there, I'm like, well, like what do you do? Like, oh, I sit here, and then it's like, now I'm feeling like the emotions come into that space, right? Like especially when I would start, I would get real fidgety, anxious, and I'd be like, a couple minutes have gone by, and I was like, I don't know if I can stand this anymore. Get upset. I totally resonate with that. Here, check out this quote. This is Pascal says, all of humanity's problems stem from our inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Now, you can argue with this. You don't have to agree with this, but this is the type of thing that I'm thinking about. This is connecting with what you're saying, right? People find it hard to do. Can you sit in a room alone quietly and find contentment? Most people can't do that, right? Especially in this day and age, this culture, like the ability to do that, we lack that, right? I know I have lacked that. I was reading, I read a quote like that and, I say, is that true? Like, can we poke holes in it? I was reading different commentaries on some philosophy forums. I came across this comment, which I thought was thoughtful. From Kim, whoever Kim is, on Philosophy Stack Exchange, says, the root of human suffering arises from an untamed mind. If you are not at peace within yourself, within your mind, you cannot experience peace and joy no matter how positive your external circumstance may be. Do you think that's true? I think that's true. As I think about it, I mean, picture it. You went on a vacation, and you're at some beach house, like Marcus is saying. We all want, or you're at some beautiful place in the mountains, okay? But what if you're not at peace? You had some terrible fight with your family. Like, could you be happy? You're in the most idyllic place, but like, if you're experiencing something traumatic and hateful, and people that you love are angry at you, like, how could you be content, right? I mean, that's how I couldn't enjoy myself, no matter where I was, right? So I do agree with that. If your mind is tamed, though, right, the opposite is true. You can experience joy regardless of the struggles and obstacles before you. I also think this is true. At least it can be true. Some of the happiest people that I met in my medical practice actually were in the most difficult circumstances, people who spinal cord injured, cannot walk, terrible afflictions. People have actual joy. And that is a thing, that I witnessed that also would sometimes bring me frustration, where I'm like, why are you so happy? That's what that's why I was really running into like personal, issues in my practice. How is this person happy here? Like, look at how terrible. I think of myself, like, I'm young, healthy, strong. I have this great job. I'm making money. I'm like, look at this person. They're on SSI. They have nothing. They're living in a nursing home. They can't walk. And here they are trying to encourage me. I'm like, oh man. Our perception creates our reality. If you are at peace, you can sit quietly alone for extensive periods of time and not be disturbed by it because your mind is calm and it doesn't require stimulation or distraction. This is true. It can be true, but this is why it is a practice. This is the goal of a meditation practice. This is, Pat, I can't bring your comment quite over here, and I keep I'll mess everything up switching back. Find a method to persevere long enough to begin to meditate is what would be helpful. Absolutely. This is the goal, to be able to find joy, contentment, peace in the midst of difficulty. Now, this says here, okay, these are Buddhist teachings, but hold true regardless of what, perspective. Yeah, I don't know much about Buddhism or if this would be a precept or not. I mean, it just seems like a thoughtful perspective. And so whatever any sort of spiritual or religious practice someone has, like, these just seem to be the way the mind works. Here's some definitions I just read through to say, well, what is Wikipedia, say? I kind of liked their review of this. I put meditation into there. No universally accepted definition, all right? Meditation is proven difficult to define, covers a wide range of dissimilar practices in different traditions or cultures. What's so interesting, though, like, so many cultures across all of history have practices like this, and say it's hard to define. It can be lots of different things. But it's just interesting, like what even is our culture? Like, our culture is disconnected, from so many of these basic practices that have actually been part of a human experience. And I think that's why I'm saying, if I could go back to my younger self, I'd say this actually does have value, right? And it's something that you can train. I've met people from other places in the world that, they train their kids to do this, and kids grow up, having mental practices of finding, peace and contentment as something to do. I think, like, oh, am I teaching my kids to, like, carve out space in their life to find spaces of peace and contentment? Like, you think about kids are just on phones now, this is not probably good. In popular usage, the word meditation are often used imprecisely to designate many different, practices, can include anything claimed to train attention of the mind or teach calmness or compassion. No universal definition, okay? And then in a different place in the article, they say, a practice in which an individual uses a technique to train attention and awareness, detach from reflexive thinking, achieve a mentally clear, emotionally calm and stable place. Yes. See, I really like those words. Oh, I'm messing this up. Practice in numerous traditions. Techniques have spread from other cultures where they have found application in non-spiritual contexts like business and health. This is what I'm trying to do, okay? I'm not trying to promote any sort of spiritual practice. I'm trying to give people a health benefit, right? My whole focus, how do I help people find a state of peace and contentment so that they can get a medical effect, get their health in the place, where you want it. Use a fasting practice to burn down blood sugar. This is the connection, though. In order to do any sort of health practice, it doesn't have to be fasting. It can be exercise. It can be doing some specific dietary program, right? You have to actually do it. You have to be in a mental state to do it. You have to get yourself to the gym, right? You have to get yourself to the grocery store. This is why I focus on fasting, because it's the simplest thing. Not the easiest thing, though, right? The way you do all of those things is you have the mindset to do it. A mindset of fasting. Fasting is open physical space, right? Food-free space. Meditation is open mental space, distraction-free mental space. Food can be a distraction. Do you see the connection? The closer we merge these things together, the more we see they're the same. If we want to remove the distraction of food that is not serving us in a space, we have to be in a mental space where we can handle the food-free space, right? Where the food is both a physical distraction that is taking us out of a fasting cycle, but it's a mental distraction that is keeping us from doing the hard work of developing a mental space of peace and contentment. It's the same. And so it might be someone is learning how to practice fasting. Is it even the root level? A lot of times I'll use a language like, oh, fasting is the root level. We need to get down to the root level. But then is it? Like, is actually the emotional state is the root level under that, right? In order to practice the physical open space, we have to have the mindset or the ability to tolerate it, right? Find a method to persevere long enough. Here are the things that I came up to share with you, which can hopefully move us in this direction. This is not a comprehensive list. This is a list that I came up with of things that I have practiced either myself or I think all of them myself, yes, and found value from. And so like I've went through with these different definitions, many other practices, nothing on here is really a spiritual practice. So all kinds of other things could be meditation. But here are things that you could consider. A mindfulness meditation. The same approach that I take to fasting, you can take to all of these practices, right? When I'm talking to someone about fasting, I'm not diving in and say, okay, tomorrow you're starting 36 hours, go. You know, no. You start at a small place. This is a practice. This is something that you build. You don't, if someone sits down to meditate, I don't say, oh, you better, set the alarm for an hour and then if you don't, you better not open your eyes or look around before an hour, otherwise you failed. People see everywhere in life, even meditation is supposed to be about coping with stress, about detaching from it to find this contentment. And then it gets turned into this thing where we're judging ourselves. We put so much pressure on ourselves even to do this thing that is supposed to be the opposite. So don't take any of that judgment to it. Okay, mindfulness meditation, observing thoughts, emotions, sensations in the body without judgment, right? Here is a place to start. When you do that, so it doesn't matter, people say, do you have to get in some special position to meditate? You don't have to do it. You can meditate sitting. You can meditate, lying down. I do think that there is value in my personal experience, when I'm trying to meditate, I think doing it seated is best. This is the classical way that it is taught. Sometimes it's not comfortable. I'm not the world's most flexible person to try to cross my legs and sit up straight and be in this thing. It's not even a comfortable position for me. Which, as a reflection for myself personally, I was like, well, it should be. And I think, human beings should be able to sit comfortably. And I was like, part of that practice has been just trying to be more flexible. See, this is the mind-body connection, right? Do we have mental flexibility, right? Do we have physical flexibility? I think this is where, yoga's gone in that direction, right? Which is kind of a hybrid physical, mental practice. Do we have mental and physical flexibility? So if maybe you are in a position where you say, I can't get in a certain position comfortably. You can totally relate to that. You can meditate in any position. If lying down is the most comfortable, you can absolutely do it. Meditation, though, isn't taking a nap, I'll tell you. And so, you lie down, you start trying to clear your things, if you just drift off, then the thing about sitting is it's active, and meditation is active. It's not a passive thing, in my experience. And so, sitting up, helpful. Create a space between cravings and actions. Okay, so this is a first step too. Meditation, you can practice it kind of in two different ways. You could practice it right in a moment, right? We're trying to break this cycle, right? And so meditation could be a practice that you take right into that physical space, and you say, maybe I do it at work. You know, people definitely send in, okay, look, I struggle with eating at work, just like me. There's like the snacks are there. People are pushing food. Everybody like is coping with their own stress with food. And then people try to be nice. Oh, I got you this thing. All right. Creating space, mental space. What if it's just 5 minutes to say, like, all this stress I'm experiencing, I'm going to take just 5 minutes and I'm going to start diving into some of these practices. Okay, you can try to break it right in that moment, but you say, okay, also I'm at work, I can't do it. This can be a practice that's on your own time after work. Maybe you get up early and do it. Maybe you do it before bed, you know, and you're building that practice where you have actual space to do it, so that when you're in these other spaces, then you have built this resiliency mentally. So both of those, and you can do both. Okay. Create space between cravings and actions. Can be a very good way this can help. Sit quietly, focus on the present moment when thoughts arise, which is what is going to happen, right? You sit by yourself, like that quote from Pascal, right? In an empty room. It's not that nothing is going to happen. What's going to happen is the thoughts are going to come, right? And the thoughts might be, this was some of the first thoughts that came to me as I was doing it. I can't stand this, right? Those are the thoughts that come. How long is this going to go on? Like, how long has it been? Because like, then you want to look, like, it's been like 30 seconds and you're already miserable, right? This is like some things I've experienced. And you think, oh, nothing is happening when I'm meditating, and that's happening. No, like that is the thing. Those are the thoughts. That's where the system is at, and it's telling you where you're at. You say, I can't spend 30 seconds by myself in a room without feeling miserable. I've been in that state. Okay, but that's a powerful observation. So we observe the thoughts, right? We see the anger that comes in. Like, this is why you know exactly what you're saying, right? And you can see already in that space where someone is who is a master, like Marcus Aurelius. They can sit for a long period of time and they're content. They'd rather be in this space than doing all the trouble of hiking out into the mountain, right? It's here and you can just see it, right? This is the practice. Acknowledge those thoughts and let them pass. They will pass. And that is the place to start. Don't judge the thoughts. Don't fight them. You know, the more you try to fight a thought, have you ever had this? I'm not going to think about what that person said. Okay, well, it's just what you think about, right? Meditation, a mindfulness practice, definitely about acceptance, right? Acknowledge the thoughts. Don't fight them and let them pass. This is the healthy way to cope with them. This is the actual practice that you do. We're not burying everything in the closet of our mind where it's building up in this stress. We're accepting it, acknowledging it, letting it pass. That's mindfulness meditation. I answer any questions about this later. Okay, I led with that. That is intense. That's legit though. Body scan meditation. Okay, this is like a less intense way to start. Maybe you do this lying down. You can do it anyway. Sometimes you can actually picture like a laser beam. Like it's scanning through, body scanner. It's a way to get out of the mind a bit, right? Get into the body a bit. Bring attention. What is happening down in the feet, right? Move through. We're all one. If we really believe it, do you believe it? Are we all one? Mind, body. If we're trying to settle the mind, find peace and contentment, this would be a way to go about it. All the thoughts are coming. What if it's overwhelming? This is a thing, like you're saying, finding a method to persevere long enough to begin to meditate. Maybe you say mindfulness meditation's sounding too intense to start. Maybe just start here. Don't just sit empty with the thoughts, like get help from the body, right? Scan through the body. Where is the tension? The body stores the tension in our body, right? For me, it's like neck, shoulders. I mean, it's not like I've achieved any sort of perfection in that. I still have that. I'm like, oh, just saying it, you know? But you'll find those spots. And then focus on releasing that tension. Here's another one. Okay, loving kindness meditation. People have different ways of doing this. Might call it a mantra. The focus on this, cultivating compassion for yourself first, right? And others. I would always say, do you have compassion for yourself? This is something actually that I think most of us don't have compassion. We're often the most brutal with ourselves. We're kind to our friends and family. We might even be kind to other people. Are we kind to ourselves? And how do you even start? Maybe you realize it. Maybe that's part of what you're coming to in this, in a mindfulness space. Maybe that's why it's so difficult, is that we actually are confronted just with ourself. Like, it's very rare that we're actually confronted with our own self. We're always focused on other things. We're doing something, we're going somewhere, we're interacting with other people. Like, what other than meditation is really a space where we're really confronted personally, like with our own self? There's nothing else here. It's like just me, you know? Like, do we have love and compassion for ourselves, really? How do you build it? How it helps, like, yeah, do we want to reduce self-judgment? Yes. Can that help with emotional eating? Absolutely. Do we accept ourselves? Practice silently repeating phrases. It doesn't have to be silent. There's no rules, really, right? But in your mind, I'm experiencing happiness. I'm experiencing health. I am at peace. This is how you push back against these things that say that can't handle it. You start telling yourself the reality. This was the quote from Kim that I showed, right? Our perception creates our reality. You want to experience a different reality. The mind is creating our reality. We need to load in. We can control our thoughts. We can control our experiences. We're not helpless. Okay? Like, thoughts come that are negative. That's the stress. We aren't those thoughts. Those thoughts don't have to define us. They often define us. We experience those thoughts and we say, oh, this is me. This is the reality. And this is what keeps the cycle going. But we load in different thoughts. This is how you start moving toward it. I am at peace. Like, to say it. Maybe you're not, you say, but you say it. This is a loving kindness meditation, right? You start loading that thought in to the system. I have love for, right? I have love for myself, right? That's where you start. And then you can extend it to others, right? Developing empathy, kindness, compassion. These are powerful root emotions that are the positive, right? That combat, that push out the negative. This is the one that I personally love the most. I am loving awareness. What a powerful phrase. Now, the reality is, maybe I'm not, but I aspire to be, right? This is a grand vision. I am loving. It's a good goal. And as we move toward it, right? What is the phrase? Like, aim for the stars and get to the moon or something, you know? We set an aspirational goal and we do our best to move toward it. A guided meditation. Here's another great way to start. You say, okay, it's very intense. Sit in a space by myself. Okay? Say, maybe just start with a guided meditation. Listen to someone talk you through a practice. Yeah, I wrote great for beginners. Can help you direct away from a food craving, right? This is why I made this fasting space playlist. So on the video channel, I got fasting space videos that are music and meditation, that is guided meditation. I'm trying to talk people through, like, hey, here's how you make it through a space. This is also a place where I started, right? When I could not sit in a space by myself alone, I type up meditation videos on YouTube, and I sit and I just listen to someone. I got some peaceful music, got someone in a voice. You can focus on the voice. Is a way to help silence this negative self-talk, that negative cycle. And they're doing what can be hard to do. Like, can it be hard to practice a loving kindness meditation and sit there and tell yourself beautiful things? Okay, it's like, can you even do it? Okay, step one, maybe have a meditation guide help you do it. Absolutely can be good. A walking meditation. Walking meditation is like, some people say, okay, it's really hard to just sit in this space. You know, we have so much anxiety and tension. Okay, walking, a super healthy thing to do. Walking is an exercise, just going for a walk, super good. Okay, but a walking meditation isn't like taking a walk. It's mindfulness. Like, look, what do we say? Walk slowly, deliberately, notice the steps, feel your feet touching the ground. This is merging with the next one. Focus on your breath while you're doing it. Okay, if you can't sit in a space, if it's too intense, okay, take a walk, but very mindful, not just for exercise, but just for the mental, using the body, right, to help calm the mind, center it on walking, okay? Number 6, I put at the end because, I don't know, I wanted to talk about it last. This is like my primary focus personally. This is where I think, 6 in 1, mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness meditation, these things all overlap. And it's not like, oh, I just pick one or the other. This can be like choose your own adventure, even within a same session. You can start with some body scan and do some mindfulness and then come and focus on a breath. And this can be also a way to kind of approach it, to say, oh, it's too intense. I'm going to dive in for 30 straight minutes of mindfulness. Okay. It's like, maybe that's too much. Well, just try a couple minutes of one of each of these. Breath awareness, if you're going to try to do it even a little bit, you might put it at the beginning. Because, okay, look what it says. Deep intentional breathing to regulate emotions and cravings. This is the important part. Activates the parasympathetic nervous system, reducing stress-induced cravings. Okay, parasympathetic nervous system. I don't know how much people are familiar with this. We have a sympathetic system. That's the adrenaline-mediated system, the fight or flight. That's what is amped up by stress, and it gets the heart rate going. It brings intensity to everything, okay? Parasympathetic is the opposite side of the system. It's triggered by deep breathing. You were chased by the lion and you got to safety. What do? You take a big deep breath. That's the physical signal in the body to calm down. See, the body, the mind, all connected. We want to calm the mind. We calm the body. By taking deep breaths, not only do we calm the body and we shut down the adrenaline and we get the parasympathetic outflow. That's what calms the mind also. So you want to get in a space where you're calming the mind. A deep breath is an incredible way to start. It is the switch in the body between parasympathetic and sympathetic. Think when you're really amped up, your breathing gets shallow and fast. Okay? Think about when you're calm. the breath can slow down. It's all connected. So I've described this practice in the past. I call this box breathing. Inhale in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold out for 4. Just go in a cycle. When I'm really stressed and amped up, I cannot do that because the breathing is fast. So that is like a goal, right? Because you should be able to go, hold for 4. Should be easy. That's like a little check-in for you, right? During your day. Can you do even one cycle of 4 on a box breathing? If you can't do that, then man, you're really amped up, right? And so a little breath awareness meditation, you can plug that into a day just as a little check-in. You can keep working while you're doing it. You're trying to hammer out some emails or whatever you're doing, but you can do it. You say, can I hold in for a 4 count here? Sometimes that can be a really centering space in a day to try to help bring the system back into a balance. You can extend that, right? If you're really getting, chilled out, you can hold that for 8, 10, absolutely. You extend that and really help do that. So as you're doing that, right, that's like the interface with number 1, right? The mindfulness, as you're getting in a cycle, probably also the thoughts are gonna come, but focusing on the breath is easier than just focusing on purely the thoughts. Okay, here's the variation, is just observe normal breathing, okay? You don't have to sit there. If you say, I'm gonna try to have a half-hour, session, I got half an hour to kill, instead of scrolling on the phone, binge watching more Dr. Z videos, I'm gonna put the phone down. I'm gonna work on a meditation. You say, okay, it's also too intense. So I hear what you're saying, right? It's mindfulness meditation. That's like the core thing, dealing with the thoughts, okay? Can be centering to focus on the breathing. And the breath, it doesn't have to be a big thing. You don't have to change your breathing in any fashion. You can just observe it. That's kind of like the connection with number 1. Just observe the breath. What is happening? It's going in and out. It's got its own rhythm here. Some people say just pick one point in the cycle and then just observe every time you get back to that cycle. For me, I pick the point where I breathe in, and then there's this point where it's like I've fully breathed in, and there's the moment of stillness before it goes out, and I just see that point. And I just notice, like, there it is. And I think, like I said, I'm just exploring these practices. This is why I put it last, is this has been the most beneficial, powerful, centering space for me, is to just focus on observing breathing without trying to change it or without trying to do anything else. Not just focus pure on the mindfulness and thoughts, but just observing the breathing. And I think, and that just is the times when I have been practicing this where I have become the most calm and centered and had an experience. Sometimes, I'll set an alarm. One of the things that would be intimidating for me is like, we all have things. I'll be like, oh, like I have an hour to kill before like I have to pick up one of my kids somewhere. It's not like I could like meditate and like forget and like, oh, I drifted off, just set an alarm. Because you always wonder like, well, how long has it been? You say, I just want to do this for 20 minutes. I set an alarm on the phone, and I might even test it. So I know, okay, the sound is on. I set it for a minute. It goes off. Like I really can trust it. It's gonna go. And then I'd observe the breathing. And then I worked on this for 2 years before I had an experience where it's like I put half an hour on the phone and I did a breathing. When it was like thing was going off. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I thought we were like 5 minutes in, and it was like half an hour. I was like, whoa. But it took 2 years before I had an experience like that. But that is an experience that was really something. And it doesn't, it's not like I don't just sit down and do that. But a couple times, you know, I've had that where I'm like, and then I really have experienced a state of calm from that. So this is just what I want to tell you. You set an intention, you move toward it, you use these practices. This has just been my experience. I'm just trying to show you things that I have done and found value from, that I have shared with people, and I have interacted with a lot of people in my weight clinic and work where they said, hey, actually, I have found value from this. So I think there's really something to it. I'm not going to read through like other sessions of studies and things. It's a practice that you can move toward and build and see if you find value from it. So here I put just a note, a silent meditation versus meditation with music. Okay. A silent meditation is the most intense, right? Deep focus, the deepest, right? To some degree, a music is a distraction, but also music helps us connect with our emotions, right? This is why music of different types is always put under movies and things. It's trying to create emotional experiences for an audience, right? Music can help us relax. Music can help us process emotions in a healthy way. When we're hearing peaceful music and calm music, that is helping to set an environment. It's a crutch, right? And who doesn't need a crutch? Like if you're trying to learn something, take all the help that you can get, right? So put on some thoughtful music that helps you find some mental space where you can move toward it. That's what I'm trying to do on the fasting space list. That's what it's what I'm trying to do on this whole live experience, right? I started thinking about it. I try to put some peaceful, thoughtful, gentle music in there, try to help us focus and dial in. I think therapeutic music is like a real thing. And this is a space where it can really help. So I also started, right? I was telling you, when I started out with it, I started with guided meditations. Guided meditation always has some gentle, peaceful music. Like, that's really a way to do it. And then it's like the next level or 3 up to just get into a space without that. See, now there's no music here, just the thought. So I'm trying to show you there's like levels and steps that you can work your way through to move toward it and develop it. Meditation feels so difficult, but at the same time, feels like I'm doing nothing. Doing nothing is intolerable. Maybe a combination of 3 and 5 to start. Yeah, I really like that. That's the paradox, right? It is nothing, right? But it's everything, right? This is why it's the same as fasting. Fasting is nothing. But fasting is like the core of metabolism. And so it's like, how can doing nothing be so difficult, right? It's not really nothing. Check out the videos, give feedback. Actually, I watched them over this week again. And just as an exercise, and trying to think about, how to make them better and more helpful. So appreciate any feedback that anybody has on it. So I thought what I would do, since this is, I want to just help people move toward these things, right? This is the way. Like, we're fasting here. I'm fasting. Trying to create spaces where we can move toward and do these things. I say, let's do a little musical meditation together to close out our session. I was laughing. I say, well, I'll stop talking. I'll put on the music and everybody click off. Well, it's fine. It's totally fine. But I found a nice little track of music and I thought, well, it sounds nice. Let's shut this one down and we'll dial in on this pretty little song. It's just 3 minutes. Okay. So here's a space, like here's some thoughts I've been thinking lately too about is like, we're all locked up in our own little individual experiences. Like this is, we're here in America. We're all about individualism here. Like we don't have so much community health experience. Like the most community health experience is like go to the gym. Okay. But that is like a tricky thing to do. Like if we were all together in a group, there's an element of this that would be so much easier to derive support, from other people that are doing it. So this is my little attempt through a video to say, let's do a little bit of a meditation together. A little musical meditation, some relaxing space to just try to sit with the thoughts a little bit. So pick one of these things. A musical meditation, there's the difference. You can just listen to music and try to relax. That is not necessarily meditation, right? A musical meditation in something like this is more focused, right? It's about really dialing in, not just to enjoy ourselves, but to find a way to move toward this space, mental peace and contentment, and ultimately to help us build the stamina mentally to be able to, do the mindfulness and really be with ourself and our thoughts in a loving and compassionate way. So maybe for you, it's focusing on, number 3, finding a phrase, I am enough, right? I have love for myself, right? While we're sitting in the music, maybe it's any of these other things. Maybe you're just kind of going through the body in a little scan. But here we go. So I'm going to sit here. I'm going to do a little practice with you. I'm going to think about how I've been so stressed out this week. Try to do my own work for 3 minutes in this little space. And then I will chat with you. Any further questions before we go on our way for this week? I hope the level is okay. It's a little louder. I hope it's pleasant. Here we go. I'll see you in a couple. Unless it doesn't work. There we go. can be a beautiful space to just, even 3 minutes like that in the day. Maybe you have a little song on your phone to just dial into that space. Here is my experience just during that couple minutes. I started thinking through the session's body scan, right? I started feeling the tension that I have in the jaw and the shoulders, right? And I think about, that's heading into this space. If a person is actually attaining some sort of really effective practice, right? We aren't going to be storing all of this tension. So it's like it just starts to show you. The body will show you, I think. And that's what it's showing me. It's like, okay, there's a lot of work to do, right? To bring this system into a space of peace and contentment, really. And so that's why I say I'm just a student. Okay, I'm moving in this direction like everybody else. Even 3 minutes, there I say, there's a little. I'm thinking through. Okay, it's a little awkward. I'm on a camera. Can we find peace and contentment here? I start realizing, I have like shallow breathing. So take a deep breath and dial in. These are the practices that I've found. If you have other practices, if you're coming through, hey, share what works for you. This is just the exploration of where these practices have led me, and I have a lot to learn. And we can all share our experiences and learn from each other. So if you have other practices, if you're coming through on the replay and you say, hey, you missed like this thing that is so incredible and it's been so good for me, throw it and share in the chat. I hope this session has been helpful. I'd love to hear your feedback on it through the week. Keep in touch on the channel. Thank you for being here with me today, and I will catch you back here next week.